As things stand, there is no other Priest track that I would rather listen to. And the ending, oh my god, the ending is something I never expected to hear. Which song on Judas Priest's Invincible Shield album has sailed straight into my all-time top 5 favourite Priest tracks? Which speedy and screamy track on this record was previewed in a snippet in a teaser video for this record? How do I rank every single song on this record, and what is my overall opinion of the whole album? Let's find out. Now, this video is twice as long as anything I've ever made for Possessed by Metal. But then again, Judas Priest, in my opinion, are twice as good as any other heavy metal band. And let me tell you, ranking all 11 songs on the standard edition of Invincible Shield was no mean feat. At times, in fact, it was downright painful. So there's lots to talk about. Let's dive in. Track number 11, which languishes at the bottom of this list, the one that I like least, is Escape from Reality. Now, I must admit that as soon as I heard this song, I not only thought that it would be at the bottom of my list, but I actually didn't like it very much. I was kind of disappointed by it because it seemed so... well, it didn't seem ordinary, but it just seemed like the kind of thing that I wasn't into. And I'm into it now. I really like it. So you'll be glad to hear that the bottom spot in this list is not a matter of worst. It really is, you know, least great. That's all it is. Escape from Reality is a really unique track for Priest. I've never heard them do anything like this before, really. It's slow without being ploddy. It's kind of, you know, it's got a bit of life to it, but it's kind of a slower track. The secret weapon of this song is the chorus, kind of a robotic chorus, the kind of thing that you could imagine a Dalek singing. Actually, I'd like to hear a Dalek sing this chorus, and it's really good. It's really catchy, and there's also a real kind of psychedelic midsection to this song, in which Rob Halford sings about levitating to a place that will amaze. So I think we know what this song's about. It seems to be about escaping from reality via certain psychedelic substances. Interesting. Yes, didn't really expect that from Priest, but here we are. So, number 11, Escape from Reality, my least favourite song on the record, but I still really like it. And when it comes up on the album, I'm certainly not skipping it. I'm going to listen to it and enjoy it. Number 10 on this list was, for a while, it was at the bottom, but I've kind of come to like it a lot more, and I really do like it now. The song is Giants in the Sky, and it's the song that closes the record. Historically, closing songs on Priest records have not tended to be my favourites, and I think that's just a kind of a slight clash of taste between what I love most from Priest and what they seem to really like to do at the end of an album. Kind of either anthemic, slower or epic tracks at the end of their records. Those tracks do not tend to be kind of high energy blasters, do they? When you think of things like Monsters of Rock on Ram It Down, Loch Ness at the end of Angel of Retribution, you don't tend to get a really fast and powerful song at the end of a Priest album, which I kind of think is a shame, because that's what I like to hear. I get really excited about the closing song of a record, because you know it's going to be hopefully a real mauler. Giants in the Sky, however, is not a mauler, but it's a really strong song in its own right, and I reckon a whole load of Priest fans are going to love it, because riffs wise it's kind of back in the 70s, and it's kind of, if you imagine a Venn diagram between Priest riffs and Black Sabbath riffs, then Giants in the Sky is there in the middle. It's not doomy, it's kind of up tempo, and I really have come to love the verse riff. I think the verse riff is really clever, the way it switches between notes and chords, and the whole song is pretty heavy. As the song literally says in the lyrics, it's a homage to the great fallen legends of rock. So it really feels like Rob Halford's tribute to fallen rock legends, who I assume, since he got on very well with this guy, would include Ronnie James Dio, which is nice to think about. It's nice to think that this song is, you know, at least in part, a homage to Ronnie. I always think there are two really important stages for when you first listen to an album. There's what you want it to be when you listen to it the first time, and then from every listen onwards, it's you coming to terms with what it actually is. And so when I first heard this record, Giants in the Sky, it was not the ending I wanted. You know, it wasn't. I wanted another blaster, because there are a few on this record, as we'll get to. Giants in the Sky is not that. It's a really special song. It feels really special, and I can see why the band have put it at the end. It's just that musically, it doesn't get me going in the same way that a lot of the other tracks do on the album. Still, I prefer it, apparently, to Escape from Reality. And there's lots to love about it. There's a really nice melodic section towards the end as well. So much to talk about with this album. Honestly, this video will probably be about half an hour long. Now, this could be a bit controversial. At number 9, we have one of the lead singles, one of the 3 lead singles from this record. No, it's not Crown of Thorns. It's actually Trial by Fire. Now, it's an interesting one, this. When the song came out, I really liked it, and I still really like it. I think it's really good. Again, I'm not going to skip any of the songs on the Invincible Shield album when they come on, and that's got to be a kind of a review in itself. That's a right royal result, isn't it? Trial by Fire, I think, is a really strong song, which is kept afloat mainly by Rob's performance, which is really kind of impassioned, and it's about this man who's been wronged and what have you. And I still think it's a really strong song. I really like that middle section with the kind of the really heavy riff. I love Rob screaming the title of the song at the end. Trial by Fire is really good. It's really good. However, weirdly, in context, in situ on the album, it suffers quite a bit. And I'll explain why later, because it relates to another song which I like a lot more. That might sound a bit odd, but I'll explain all later on. Track number 8 in this list is another lead single. It is Crown of Thorns. Not bad going for a song which is technically, I know a lot of you have protested against this when I said this in the other video the other week, a ballad, a metal ballad. It is essentially a metal ballad. Or if you're really against it being called a metal ballad, then perhaps we can agree that it is the softer song on the record. Perhaps we can agree on that. It's the softest and most melodic song on the record. I think we will agree on that. And it's a great song. It's a great song. In fact, Crown of Thorns has kind of fluctuated around. At one point, it was as high as like 6 or 5 or something like that out of the full 11 tracks. Yeah, Crown of Thorns is a gorgeous song. I mean, all of the vocal melodies are just perfect. It's a really perfect, lovely song. Yeah, it's a stunner. Also, when I made the Crown of Thorns specific video recently, I don't think I'd quite appreciated how heavy and how good that really heavy, slow riff is in the middle of it before the kind of the middle 8. Yeah, that's really, really good. And lovely solos as well. I mean, the soloing work is just absolutely impeccable throughout this album. I'm more of a riff man than a lead guitar man, generally speaking. So if I don't happen to mention that the leads are great in any particular song on this record, then don't assume that's because they're not great, because they are really. I haven't heard a bad solo or a less than amazing solo on this record. Right, now we're getting into the really great stuff, because number 7 is, drum roll please, Gates of Hell. Gates of Hell. Now, I must admit, I had higher hopes for this song based on the title, because what a great, cool title. And also, Gates of Hell is the title of one of my favourite horror movies, directed by the Italian gore maestro Lucio Fulci. However, it's a really good song. It's a really strong song. I mean, obviously, it's like at number 7 out of the 11 tracks. I must admit, I think Gates of Hell would have been a stronger choice of second lead single from the record than Trial by Fire. I think it's catchier, and it's a kind of it's a rock song. I think of it as being more of a rock song than a metal song. I mean, it is a metal song, but it's kind of like a rock anthem in the same way that, I don't know, Rock Hard, Ride Free, maybe, that kind of sort of tempo, sort of, and that kind of feel, sort of, but it also feels quite different. It's got a sort of quite a segmented verse riff that sounds, in the vague style of AC/DC, but it doesn't sound like AC/DC, and it's got a really good fun chorus. It's basically about having a right old laugh and riding through the gates of hell, shrieking like banshees. That's basically all the song is about. It's a bit of fun, and there's a nice line in the pre-chorus that says, "Let the priest have your soul." Nice bit of self-referential behaviour here. It's worth noting as well, and this is a general point, Priest have just really lavished their attention on this record. You can really feel it, and I think one of the ways that manifests itself most, that extra detail, is the beginning and endings of the songs. And with Gates of Hell, I'm thinking particularly about the beginning of this one. A lot of the songs have a kind of a bit more of a build-up at the beginning, whereas a lot of the songs on Firepower, for instance, just kind of came in, like Evil Never Dies kind of just came in straight away. And I must admit, I think there's a hell of a lot to be said for that approach. But Gates of Hell has a really lovely sort of melodic opening, and it builds up and then launches into the rock anthem fun. Yeah, Gates of Hell is great. Love it. Track number 6 in this list is Devil in Disguise. I was a bit surprised to find it this high up in the list, actually, Devil in Disguise, because when I first heard it, it sounded so kind of traditional Priest. On the album track listing, Devil in Disguise is at number 4, and it kind of follows the first 3 tracks, which obviously I'm going to talk about later in the list. Compared to those tracks, Devil in Disguise sounds very traditional, very like we've kind of heard this kind of thing before, to be honest. But a few things. A, the quality of it is great, and B, it's nice to have, you know, one or two really traditional Priest songs on a new Judas Priest album, isn't it? Partly because there's a whole audience that loves that kind of style and that kind of very 80s kind of songwriting and that general approach. But yeah, it's a really strong song, and I say it's really traditional, but the verse riff is pretty inventive. It's got a kind of a note-picking style. Not unlike something like Metallica. I've never really heard Priest do a verse riff like this. So while I'm saying it's a traditional song, maybe I mean in its approach rather than the execution. Okay, I'm in the process of editing this video, and this particular part of the video is driving me mad because I'm being very clumsy with what I'm saying. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that Devil in Disguise initially sounds like a really trad Priest song that has hidden depths and actually isn't all that trad. Right, back to you, Jason. Get it together, for Christ's sake. There's some great melodies in the song. They have a really nice melody that builds up towards the end. And that's another example of songs ending in a way that's just had a lot more work devoted to it. Yeah, it's a really powerful song. Oh my God, we're in the top 5. So you might be thinking, where is Panic Attack going to end up in this list? The very lead single from the album and the opening track on the album. Well, it's at number 5. Number 5, right here. That means there are 4 tracks on this album that, I think are better than Panic Attack. How'd you like them apples, eh? Especially as Panic Attack is a right banger. Yeah, I mean, it was a great lead single to have from the record. And when I think back, I don't know why we were in any doubt that it was going to be the opening song on the record, just because of the way it builds up. And, it sounds totally like an album intro at the start, doesn't it? Even though it kind of wrong-footed a lot of people with those kind of prog leanings. When I think about it, this album literally has something for everybody, every type of Priest fan. Even fans of the Turbo period get the start of Panic Attack. Bit of synth guitar there. But yeah, Panic Attack by now very well, I'm sure. It's an up-tempo attack to the senses with Rob Halford shrieking about how mad the World Wide Web is. It's a hell of a song, isn't it? What a song. Still to come, you'll hear me say stuff like this. A bit ploddy, I'm sorry to say. Priest kind of looked inside my brain and saw what kind of song I'd like them to write and then wrote it. The ending is something I never expected to hear. Right, let's get back to the list. Number 4 is a real surprise to me, I have to say. It's Sons of Thunder. Now, Sons of Thunder is the penultimate song on this record. It comes before Giants in the Sky. And when I first heard Sons of Thunder, this comes back to what I was saying earlier about how there are 2 kind of different listeners to this record. There's what you want it to be and then what you get used to it being or not. But Sons of Thunder has just come up in my estimation. It's a real grower. It's a grower, not a shower. Yeah, Sons of Thunder. At first, I thought it was just, compared to some of the other tracks, like the next 3 tracks on this list in particular, I thought it was just too simple. It seemed quite simple. But it's actually not simple, really. It is and it isn't. But there are lots of other things I've noticed about it that really make me love it. And I'm surprised it's at number 4, but I'm also very happy because what a great song. Sons of Thunder feels a bit like Flamethrower Part 2. Remember Flamethrower from Firepower? Yeah, it's along similar lines, partly because of the way the verses are structured, and the riff is kind of a bit similar, and even the bridge is a little bit similar. But even though it's a sequel, I believe it to be a superior sequel, and it's got a great rabble-rousing chorus. Yeah, Sons of Thunder. It's a bruiser. All the top 5 songs in this list are all absolute bangers and bruisers, let me tell you. If you haven't heard this album yet, then you're in for a treat, especially if you like Priest being still Priest, but as brutal as Priest can be within their own style, and maybe even pushing the boundaries a bit there. Thematically, Sons of Thunder is on similar footing to Gates of Hell. It's kind of about driving fast all night and having a right good laugh while you're doing it. And that's fine. I think that's the kind of thing we want at least twice on any given Priest record. Let me just give you one example of a kind of a detail of Sons of Thunder that I really love. The second verse changes the riff from the first verse. It's still the same riff, it's still the same notes, but it's played differently and in a way that kind of turns the screw on the intensity of the song. And I absolutely love that. I think that's so inspired. You hardly ever hear that happening. And I'd love to hear the story of how the songwriting progressed on that song and this album in general. We are at number 3, and it's time to reveal the song from which a snippet was used in that little Priest teaser, that kind of fast, screamy song. It was and is The Serpent and the King. Now, I must confess that when I first saw this song title, I was a bit worried. I don't think it's one of Priest's better song titles, or at least I didn't back then. Now it's hard to separate it from the song. It just becomes, the title of the song. But I was kind of worried it was going to be like some kind of rambling progressive rock epic about a serpent and a king, literally. I think it seems to be more about politics and kind of the people who move the great big chess pieces in the world. And it's a banger. I mean, as you can remember, if you've heard that snippet, that's from the verses and a bit of the bridge we heard as well in that snippet. And it's just a really fast song. I love the way that the album goes from Panic Attack into the Serpent and the King. Got a pretty fast song, and then Serpent and the King is actually faster. In a similar way to Electric Eye was sort of fast, or at least up tempo, and then Riding on the Wind comes in and it's faster. Yeah. It's that kind of setup. And The Serpent and the King is a really interesting song. It's got lots of different bits and sort of layers to it. And but mostly it kind of makes you nod your head quite a lot. Yeah, in agreement with its awesomeness. It's got a really kind of 70s riff to it, which is great. I only have one sort of criticism about that approach, which we'll come to when I'm talking about the number 1 track, actually. Yeah, it's got a very 70s riff, which is great. But then when Rob's vocals come in on the verse, it goes so heavy. It's like the heaviest possible version of itself. It's like it switches from a 70s riff to a 2024 riff, which is brilliant. Let's just take a moment here to praise Andy Sneap for the production on this record, because I honestly think it's the best production that a Judas Priest record has ever had. I think it's better than Firepower, a little more texture than Firepower. It just sounds great. I mean, the guitars sound great. It just sounds, you can't imagine it sounding any better. And I think there can be no higher accolade for a production job on an album. And let's not forget, I think it's far too easy for us to forget what kind of role a producer can also play on a record that goes far beyond audio and sonics. Getting the best performances out of the band and really pushing them to deliver can be something that a great producer does. I believe quite firmly that that's what Andy's been doing for the last 2 Priest albums, including this one. So, Serpent and the King is awesome, and there's a bit in the middle that I love. It kind of reminds me of The Ripper a little bit, with a riff on its own, and then the drums come in and the bass and do a bit of jazz rhythm there, just a snatch of jazz. You can't beat a snatch of jazz on a Priest record. It's gone as quickly as it arrived, and it's a blaster. There's a great middle eight. The whole song is great, and also the chorus is unlike any vocal melody I've heard from Priest. It's a little bit, I think there's a hint of alt rock in it, but not so much as to make you want to be sick. No. Oh, there's 2 tracks left, and honestly, I could talk about each of these tracks for half an hour, I swear. I won't though, but I could. Number 2 in this list, the second greatest track on this album as far as I'm concerned, is As God Is My Witness. Now, this song, it's like Priest kind of looked inside my brain and saw what kind of song I'd like them to write and then wrote it. And it's partly because I'm a huge fan, possibly one of the few huge fans, of the all-time greatest Priest deep cut Hard as Iron from the Ram It Down record. I love Hard as Iron. I just think it's an incredible track, and why it didn't immediately become a mainstay in the live set and just be lauded forevermore, I've no idea. But this song is along similar lines. If we're talking about sequels, then As God Is My Witness is musically, just purely musically, it's a cousin, a sequel, whatever you want to call it, to Hard as Iron. And it's a steamrolling track with a brilliant performance from Rob, and what a song. Yeah, it's just great. I love the riff. I love Scott Travis's drums. This is the kind of track where Scott Travis really comes into his own, and he's amazing on this record with brilliant fills. There's a great fill he does in The Serpent and the King, by the way, just before that guitar comes in and by itself in the middle. Yeah, brilliant fill. He just really holds the whole thing together. Incredible work, Mr. Travis. And here, though, is where I need to explain why Trial by Fire suffers when it's in situ on the record. It's because it comes after this song. As God Is My Witness is an amazing track choice for coming after Crown of Horns. So we have Crown of Horns at number 6, I think. Yeah, number 6 on the record. And then after that comes As God Is My Witness, which is perfect. You have the more melodic song, and then a steamroller comes in. But then we have Trial by Fire, which coming straight after As God Is My Witness just sounds a bit ploddy, I'm sorry to say. Still love Trial by Fire. I like it a lot. But after As God Is My Witness, And when I say that, I actually don't just mean musically as well. There's something that has occurred to me, and this may be because I'm a writer and I sort of think about this kind of stuff. But As God Is My Witness is very much about a man who's been wronged, but he's blazing a trail of hatred back, and he's going to prevail, as Rob literally sings in the song. You know, he says, as God is my witness, there'll be hell to pay. And that's amazing. That's rousing material, isn't it? It's exciting. And then, though, after that, you comes a song, Trial by Fire, in which Rob is singing about being kind of wronged and lied about, but he's not doing anything about it, really. You see what I mean? If the two songs had been switched, if you'd had Trial by Fire and then As God Is My Witness, you could almost have thought about it as a kind of a concept, a mini concept, two conceptual songs, Trial by Fire followed by The Comeback. You know, there's going to be hell to pay. But the fact that the track's the other way round is a bit of a shame. I mean, I may be overthinking this, and, you know, all I have to do is set up a playlist in Amazon Music and switch those two songs around, and I'll be happy, which I probably will do. If you haven't got Amazon Music, by the way, and you'd like to take out a free trial, you'll find a link in the video description. Anyway, As God Is My Witness, I love it. I love the pre-chorus, the verses, the chorus. I love all of it. If you've heard the album by the time you watch this video, then I really want to see your own rankings of the songs on this record. I'd love to see that. That'd be really interesting, because opinions are so varied. You know, my ex-Kerrang colleague Paul Gooner Elliott told me that his favourite song on this record is Trial by Fire, you know, and that's kind of a bit baffling to me, but that just shows you. I think this is the kind of record where opinions will be pretty diverse because it appeals to a lot of different Priest fans. Anyway, what's number one? You know what number one is if you've been paying attention to the track listing. It's the title track, Invincible Shield. And oh my God, I've been dying to talk about this track for months now. This song has sailed straight into my top 5 Priest songs of all time. I mean, you have to take into account recency bias, right? But as things stand, there is no other Priest track that I would rather listen to than Invincible Shield, the song Invincible Shield. It's just an amazing song, and I could make a whole video about it, and maybe I will, just about that song. But it's almost 6.5 minutes long. It's longer than Painkiller, but it does not outstay its welcome for 1 second. It's kind of probably one of Priest's longer songs. But because it's another blaster, by the way, so that means that this album opens with 3 blasters, 3 up-tempo songs. I'm struggling to think of a Priest record that has done that before, and it really blew me away when I first heard it. I mean, what other Priest record has done that? Even Painkiller has Hell Patrol as the second track coming after Painkiller, and then it goes to All Guns Blazing. But, you know, this is probably the only Priest album where you have 3 blasters opening the record. How cool is that? I mean, it does front load the album in terms of intensity. I think that's the only slight issue with it, but I think it's kind of worth it for the effect you get with that opening 1, 2, 3, 3-gun salvo. Jesus. It really does seem to, I think, perhaps deliberately, it feels like it encapsulates everything that everyone has ever loved about Priest, apart from the Turbo album, okay, but it encapsulates so many eras of Priest in one seamlessly patched together song. It's not patched together at all. It's just seamless. It's wonderful. I would love to hear how long they spent on this song, because it really feels like they went not just the extra mile, but the extra 100,000 miles. It's so good and so intense. Now, let me just get one criticism out of the way. It starts with another kind of fast 70s style riff, which I think is too similar to the one in The Serpent and the King. That's my one criticism. And so it's not a criticism of the song itself, but more of a criticism of the fact that it's coming straight after The Serpent and the King, which had that kind of riff. It's a bit odd. But anyway, let's move on from that and go straight into the verses of Invincible Shield. I love the verses so much. The verses are my favourite thing on this record, especially the third verse, which comes after the whole glorious guitar solo section. The third verse is short but very sharp, and it does shock and stun. Trust me, the third verse in this song is my favourite thing on the whole record, and it's just the kind of thing that I've always kind of wanted Priest to do. This whole song is the kind of thing I've been wanting from Priest without even really knowing it. I think it's such a special song, and I'd love to hear what you think of it if you've heard it. It's got the 70s style approach, including a very Exciter-esque passage, which is really fun to hear. Yeah, and it's got glorious melodies. It's got real kind of rabble-rousing power chords, especially in the verses. There's 4 power chords that just make you go like that every single time you hear them. It's a complicated song in a way, Not in terms of any fiddly time signatures, although there are a couple thrown in. It's got a lot of stuff going on. It's got a lot of different sections, but it all fits together so well, incredibly well. And the guitar solos are great, as you'd expect. And the ending, oh my God, the ending is something I never expected to hear. It's, again, really unusual and feels really special. It's kind of like a really fast dual guitar melody. When Richie Faulkner and Andy Sneap play this bit live, and I certainly hope they'll be playing the title track live, I expect to see their brows really furrowed. I know they're both virtuoso guitarists, but Jesus, these melodies are really fast and they're superb. And it feels really unusual for a Priest song to end with an instrumental passage like this. No Halford singing along, it's just an instrumental passage at the end. So it's 6.5 minutes of just brilliance. I love this song. Can you tell? Have I mentioned it? Have I made that clear enough to you? My love for this song. So I better stop talking about the title track or we'll be here all day. So how do I feel about the whole album? I mean, it's such a strong album. I mean, again, recency bias, but at the moment there is no Judas Priest album that I would rather listen to. And, you know, you have to bear in mind the bias that comes along with something that's really fresh and exciting compared to the albums you've heard so many times that maybe you've kind of lost sight of the appeal of them. You know, I love Defenders of the Faith. That's technically my favourite Priest album, but right now I'd rather listen to this. And can you have a much more of a triumph that I would rather listen to this new Priest record, their 19th, than you know, any other thing they've made. That's crazy, isn't it? That's really good. I do think it's an album that could unite Priest fans because it has something. I know it's a cliche, but cliches are often just said because they're true. I think it is an album with something pretty much for everyone, no matter what kind of Priest fan they are. There's nothing of the sort of the Ripper Owens type era where, you know, with groove riffs and Priest sort of trying to work out where they fitted in and trying to fit in with what is happening. No, this is Priest being Priest and then expecting the world to fit around them. The only question is how the world will fit around them, not how they will fit into the musical world. And that is as it should be. They don't need to prove anything anymore, I don't think. But they have nevertheless devoted so much time and attention to this record. It's very obvious. It's very obvious. Like I said, from the beginnings and the endings of the track in particular, I mean, the end of the title track feels so special. Such a gift. And, you know, I really hate to think about it, and I'm just going to say it very quickly to get out of the way, but if this is the final Priest album, if it does prove to be the final Priest album, then what a way to go out. Yes. Wow. I want to hear what you think of it. If you've heard the whole album, then get down in comments and for God's sake, let me know. Let's have a chat about it. And if you'd like to literally buy me the time to make more videos like this, click through to my Patreon and support me there. Go crazy. So this album's opening track, Panic Attack, made it to number 5 in this list, but where would it end up on my list of Priest's album opening tracks, the greatest album opening tracks from their entire career? Click through to this video here to find out. Thanks for watching and please remain possessed by metal.